Hi, this is Mike Bale with Bangert Inc. In today's session, we're going to talk a little bit about what to do with payroll during your first month end or any month end for that matter, what reports you can run and how to prepare some data and how to get into Atrix. And we'll just take you through the best practices for that within the system. So you should be looking at some demo data we have right now. So with payroll, again, you typically want to be at your entity level. So whichever company or entity you're reporting on for payroll. I'm in Timberline General Construction today. So one of the things you can do is in payroll and really at any time in the system, if you go into the payroll module and you'll notice under all, you're going to have, you're going to have the reporting section, and then you're going to have a section for Atrix and for what's called reporting, which is actually an export of payroll data that you can export out to Excel. So what's nice about the reporting area here, this reporting section inside payroll, is you can kind of always get at that data and it comes out in detail. So it's kind of like a catch-all if you just want to grab all of your payroll data at any time and review it, use it in an Excel report, condition it, filter it, that type of thing. So, when in doubt, you can always go into payroll here and you can go into reporting. And once you go into reporting, you have a couple options. You can run your reporting for all your check detail and you can date range it. So one thing to keep in mind is this start date here refers to check date. So put your mouse or your cursor right over this little I informational widget here, and it'll tell you this is for check date. So, let's say I want to run some data and run my month end for September in payroll. So maybe I want to just run September 1st, any checks dated September 1st and through the end of the month, September 30th. And then you could determine if you want to filter what type of checks. We only want approved checks. We don't want any pending or voided. So we'll click approved and we'll click export data. So all it's going to do here is it's going to actually generate an Excel file and download that file to your download folder. And I can click on it here and open it up. And basically, I just wanted to show you this first because it's going to give you every piece of data and information that you may want to look up or review within the system in payroll. So you'll see there's multiple tabs. Check detail, this is every employee's check within that pay period based on the check date. You can see all the different coding, the hours, the earnings, the vacation, every tax, every deduction, all across the top here. Okay. So if I wanted to get a total for one particular tax for that period, I could actually just come over to, this column here, for example, right here is my federal withholding employee amount. So I could actually quickly click the auto sum here in Excel. And that's the amount that was paid, that was collected for federal withholding for the month of September, $475. You could compare that to your general ledger, liability account if you want to. But this is a quick down and dirty way to kind of get totals by any pay modifier, any tax, any earning in the system for a particular period. And that is just the first tab, the check details tab. There's also some additional tabs here in the bottom. Earnings, including pay modifiers. So you can see each employee now. In this case, I only had one check. Well, actually a couple weeks, but I only had one check in September. So if Robert Jones had more than one, you would see each week's here. And it would show you each of the hour types across the top. So again, if I want to see what my amount was for regular gross pay, there it is. So you can get that quickly and easily right within the system. And then it's the same theory going down these tabs, pay modifiers. So basically what they've done is taken this first tab, which has everything, and kind of just, made it a little simpler and broke it out by each section here. So instead of going through all of these columns, you can just go right to earnings, pay modifiers, taxes. Okay, so if you want to see what you have to pay for taxes, you can do it out of here as well. Company paid. So this would be any employer fringes, 401k, all of that is right here. Okay. And then on top of that, if you're tracking PTO in the system, you can get recap on the PTO. So all of that is available right within payroll module under reporting. And don't forget, you can star that menu item to put it on your favorites, and then it'll show up over here on the left side. So you'll see here I have reporting. So if I go to payroll, there's my reporting. Okay, and then we'll show you some other ways to do it down the road. On top of that, we do have customer reports that come in the system that are payroll related, and you can see them right off the menu here. And if you don't see them off on the menu here, contact us at help@bangerninc.com. We'll make sure that they're on your menu and that your payroll reports are uploaded and ready to go. But you should see them here. All the out-of-the-box payroll reports will start with the name payroll in front of them. I do have some custom ones here as well that we typically load up for our customers as well who have payroll. But these are all the custom reports that are on there. Now, with that being said, to make sure you don't have to have every one of these reports on your menu. So what I like to do is when we get into the reporting section, I'm going to show you where they are by default, and then you can decide on if you want to put them on the menu or not. Okay. So basically this reporting export gives you the ability to export all that check information. Also export, if you want to export and see your time detail, maybe for a particular project. And then you can also see PTO ledgers, so you can actually generate your PTO export reporting. That's all within payroll, and you can do that at any time. So some of the things that you want to consider at month end is, I think the most obvious is, and you can see it when I went into reporting, it said, all right, you want to run these checks, what type of check status? And there is a pending here. So one of the things you do want to make sure of is to make sure that you've posted through your payroll before you run any reports. And don't forget, there's that also the other step in here called send reporting data. So let's say you're doing your last payroll for September. I'm just going to pull up the 21st because that's the last one I have in here right now. You know, you want to make sure that all of these checkboxes are on, that they've been posted, that they've been synced. And not only that, that you've sent the reporting data. And if you notice, if you put your mouse over that, it'll tell you the last date it was sent. And we can see here, this was sent on 9/19. So that would probably tell me that this information might not have been sent over yet. And how the payroll reporting works is, in order for those payroll reports to work over in the ICRW, which we'll be going to next, we want to make sure we have that payroll data sent over. It does not hurt you to click this as many times as you want. So I would recommend at your month end, before you run any of the monthly reports, just come into here and click send reporting data. Now, I know I'm going to have some, and it'll tell me, look, hey, there's no new data to send. We already sent it all. And that's fine. That's great. That tells me that all my data is up to date. And again, just to reiterate where that is, it's under payroll, all checks. And it doesn't really matter what week you pull up. It's not just sending this week. It's going to send any data that hasn't been sent yet at that time. Okay, so you want to make sure that that is done before you proceed. So let's go over. I'm going to show you where the payroll reports will reside by default. So the place to go to find these payroll reports is right in the report section. And under the report section, you can find them two places. You can go directly into Interactive Custom Reports and see the menu there. They should also be in the Report Center. I'm going to go into Interactive Custom Reports first and see my overall list. This will show you all of your Interactive Custom Reports that have been loaded up for you. Your list may look very different than mine, but the main list that I want you to look at is the payroll group. So again, like I stated, they are usually typically labeled with payroll in the front of them. So I'm going to go to my second page here. And you'll notice you'll see these payroll reports in the menu here, and they'll have a dash CRE on them. If you do not see these payroll reports on your reporting menu, again, contact us at help@bangerinc.com. We'll make sure your payroll reporting package is loaded up if it has not been already. So again, you should see these on the menu, and you'll notice here there's different reports for different scenarios. There's a check activity by employee. There's what's called registers versus totals. Registers are typically going to be run on a weekly basis or whatever your pay period is. Totals are going to be run for what we're talking about today. You know, you have month end, you want to run some monthly payroll reports. These total reports, so if you see here, we have deduction totals, earning totals, tax totals. Those reports are based on your system date. So there's no putting in date ranges on these. They're going to give you totals for month to date, quarter to date, and year to date. Okay. So what you want to do is, if I'm in September, you want to run these reports before you actually physically get into October. Because then what'll happen is the formula in those reports is going to look at your current month as October, not September. Now, these reports can be modified as well. It's just a formula in a column. You could add a new column with the ICRW reporting. That does, current month -1. So you can see prior month, just as a safety precaution. So you could add to these reports, but out of the box, the current month totals that we want are going to be based off this system date. So you want to run these reports physically. I would just run them after you've posted your last payroll for that month. That'll work fine, or physically before the next calendar period. And let's go take a look at one, and then I'll show you kind of how to manipulate them on the menus a little bit. So let's say, for example, I want to look at my tax totals for the month. I can come into here and find one of my payroll employee or employer tax totals. I do believe, let's go to the next page. There is one there's one for tax totals where you can see your employee and employer taxes on one report if you want to do that. So let's go to the payroll tax totals here and click run. So this sometimes takes, a few seconds to come up based on all the criteria that's loading up for us here. Once it comes up, we're not going to have many filtering options. Now, again, with the ICRW custom report writer, you're able to add and build your own filters onto these. But out of the box, you're going to be able to say, all right, I just want to see one employee. So I can hit select and grab my employees. Or I might want to see approved and pending. Maybe there is a check run that's pending, but I know it's going to be included in that month. So I can actually click add here, and I can add a pending status on one of these if I wanted to. But in most cases, you're going to come into here and you're going to click view. And when you click view, it's going to run that, and it's going to calculate those totals by employee for each of the taxes that are set up in the system. And we'll let that run briefly here. And so now you'll see for each employee, there's no dates here because it's month to date tax, employer month to date, quarter to date, year to date. So you can see here for Robert Jones, for FICA, there's the month to date FICA for Robert Jones, and so forth. Okay, so you can do that down there as well. So what you can do with these reports is you could print them. So if I scroll down, you're either going to have a print button on the top. If not, go down to the bottom of the report, and you're going to have an export. And when you click export, you can export it formatted, and you can export it to a PDF file. And then based on your PDF, it'll actually download it as a PDF. You can export it to Excel and go from there as well. Okay. Now, what you can also do is you can email the report. You can email it to yourself. You can email it to somebody else. And you can also process and store it. So if you want to keep a copy of what that report was, especially because it changes the buckets here, I can go to process and store. And I'm going to run the report on 9/27, which is today in my demo environment. I'm going to store it in Intact. I'm going to call it September 2023 employee tax report. Tax total report, let's call it. Let's call it tax report. Pick the type that you want it to be. I want it to be a printable report. And I'm going to store it in Intact. So what I can do now is I can click OK. And that report will run in the background. And you can see it here, reports being processed, check my stored reports, and I'll show you where that is in the system, and that'll run. Now, what you can also do is you can also memorize that report, and you can schedule it to run the last day of the month automatically for you and store it in the system. So that's another nice feature that some people will do. Then they don't have to worry about forgetting to run these month-end reports. Okay, so if we go back to here and we go into, let's see, I always forget where my reporting is. Let's get into here. Okay, and actually it's in the module that you generated the report. So if I go to payroll, under all, you'll see my stored reports. I can click on that. And there's the report that we ran and when we ran it and what we named it. And so it's in process, so it hasn't generated yet. So we'll give it a second. We'll come back. We'll come back to it, and we'll let that. We'll check on that in a sec. So you can do that. If I go back to my reporting area here, I can run those reports. As you can see, I can run those any way I want. You can run them off multiple reports. You could run registers as well. If you want to run the register reports, you can do that too. But there's earning totals, there's deduction totals. Any of the total reports are going to give you that month-to-date bucket that is going to be helpful for you in your system. In addition to that, we do have a few reports that we load up for you when we provision your instance with payroll. One of them in the system you'll notice is called now this is more for the weekly processing, but there is a report in there called Weekly Federal and State Payroll Tax Report. I just wanted to talk about a little bit about that. So if you had a weekly, you're required to file your taxes weekly, you could run that report. Just keep an eye out for that. Again, if you do not see it, contact us and we'll make sure it's on your menu. But this one here you can run. Typically we tweak it with you. We show you how to tweak it a little bit. Now this is based on pay period, but it can be for the month. We can actually date range this. But in here, if I say my check date, 9/21, this is going to give me a recap in total by all the taxes that I need to pay to the federal government, my federal withholding, my state withholding. And what we've done is if you have multiple states, we usually can show you how to add some columns here so that you can see each state across the top. But this gives a nice little layout, and you don't need employee detail. If you don't want to turn it on, you can just summarize it by period end date or payment date, and you get a total at the bottom here. So you can say FICA total is going to be $893, and this is actually showing, I believe, employer and employee buckets as well. So that's a nice little report to use weekly, and you can also use it for a monthly recap with a tweak on the filter. So you can do that as well. Some of the other reports we typically load up would be like a payroll recap by GL account. You'll see that here. If I click run here, this one gives you a nice recap. Again, it's for the week. but you can make this a monthly report as well. And if I click view here, this is going to give me a recap for every GL account that was hit for payroll. Now you can see that also in your General Ledger journals, but this gives a nice recap by GL account, FICA payable, Medicare, SUDA, so you can get a nice recap as well. So again, with a quick tweak, the one I have to show you today is just per pay period, but with a quick tweak, we could have this be payment dates from and to, and now you have a monthly report for that. So we'll most likely roll that out as well automatically, but just contact us if you would like that option set up, and we'll show you how to do it. So you have all these payroll reports in here. What you can do to make them easier to find in the system is you can label them. So you'll see here you have a report audience field and a report type field. And if you go into these reports, I've created a couple options. So where you do this type of information is going to be over to the right. You'll see something in here called Advanced Settings. So if I want to add, let's say that payroll recap by GL account, I'm going to go to Advanced Settings here and click on that line. And now you have this report audience and report type fields. And these are definable however you want them to be labeled. You literally can just come into here and click add with security, and you can label them. So I have, for example, an audience called payroll. And report type, I built year-end, weekly processing, monthly recap. So right now this one's set up for weekly, so I'm going to put it to the weekly group. And you can add your own groups. You can just call it payroll if you want to. And here's also where you can secure that particular report. So you can deny everybody and just give access to one group or one user. And we'll say save. And that kind of helps because what you can do now is right from here, you could just type in payroll and it shows you all your payroll reports just like that. Okay. Or, hey, I'm working on month end. So let's just type in MON. And there's all my month end reports. Okay. In addition to that, you can come over to here and click add to menu. So if I remember, I mentioned earlier, you could put these on the payroll menu over here, right? Well, this is how they get on the payroll menu. So, all right, here's the 5 reports I use. They give you a lot of these payroll reports. I definitely use this tax total one. So I can click add to menu. And I can put it on the module that I want. So in this case, I want to put it on a construction payroll. And all you have to do is click add menu right here and you click save. Now make sure you refresh, because if I just go up to the menu now, that one's not going to show up there yet. Now it might have already been on there, to be honest with you, but make sure you click refresh. And now you should see over in custom reports, that tax total is there right there. Okay, so you can do it that way. Now, I do want to mention the other way. Basically, under reports, there's something in here called Report Center. And what's nice about Report Center is it combines all the different types of reports to one place. So that is all your ICRW reports, all your custom reports, and all your financial reports, and all what's called the system-based reports are all here. And it usually labels them with what type of report they are. But when you come into Report Center, you have this All Reports tab, and typically it'll start like this, All Applications. And this can get pretty big, right? So there's every module's report here. But what you can do is you can filter by application. So if you put the report on the payroll menu, I can hit payroll. And now it's showing me all of my payroll reports along with my codings that we did in the other area. And then right from here, you can star these, and then they show up under the favorites tab right here. So if I click favorites, just for payroll, there's my reports. And there's that tax total report, and I can click it, and it'll take me back into where we were before. So you can do that as well. So there's a lot of different ways to get access to these reports. and one of them we didn't even mention yet was you can link the reports directly to a dashboard. A lot of times what we'll do with you is have a payroll workflow dashboard set up for you. If not, make your own, but in a payroll workflow dashboard, you could do things like, recap your payroll process step by step, but also have a group like this, weekly payroll reports to run, maybe monthly payroll reports to run, and link the reports. And all I'm doing here is hitting this little settings wheel. And when you go into here, the component is called custom navigation. And all you need to do is name it and then go find it on the menu. So this takes a little scrolling here. Payroll is typically down near the bottom. There isn't a great way to pre-fill. I'd recommend just scrolling up and down and finding that payroll area. And once you find it, which I think I've already passed, let's go down to the bottom again. Come on, I know you're here. We'll find this. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it's near the top. I'm sure I've already passed it, and I must have already passed it. Sorry about this. Let's find this thing. I'm going to look one more time. Here we are. Okay. So there's your payroll menu. You can see it shows you, here's your payroll reports. Any of these reports can be clicked on and, just called union report and save. And all that does is that gives you a new link. And now that union report's there, so I can just click on that and get into my union report that way. Ultimately, that's the way I like to do it. So you can run those month-to-date reports at your month end for that. You can also then, at this point, if I go back into payroll, run any any Atrix month-end reporting or quarter-end reporting that you need to run. So one of the things you do want to make sure is that you have your Atrix account set up. You can set one up directly through Atrix if you don't have one. There is a setup item in payroll under entity. I'll be able to get into it. Under the entity setup, there is a spot in here for your company. So I'm in GC under details where you are linking to what your customer identity name is over in Atrix. Okay, so mine is Banger Demo. Yours, whatever, when you set up your Atrix account, it has a company name associated with it. You just want to put that there. But to get into Atrix, you just come into here and say Setup, or under All, Payroll, Report, Atrix. And again, you could put this on the dashboard as well. But if I click on Atrix here, it's going to come up and give me some options. So those who have used like Sage 300 CRE, you pick the report after you get into Atrix there. Here, you pick the report first. So if I go to my entity reporting, which company, so I only have one in here, GC, that's my Timberline General Construction. And if I come down here, I can select a federal form or a state form. So if I want to do a federal form, let's do, we're going to do a quarterly 941. When you select the form, it's going to give you the options that it needs. So this is a quarterly report for 941. So if your month end falls on a quarter, reporting year, reporting quarter, this would be the third quarter. Now I'm physically not in the end of the third quarter yet, but it pre-fills to my last date. And I could then come over to here in the top right and click Initiate. When I do that, it's going to ask me to log into Atrix. So this is where if you haven't set up an account yet, you want to make sure you do that through the Atrix site. But I'm going to go ahead and put in a username that I already have set up. And hopefully remember my password. And it's going to go ahead and log in. It will ask you to update some data, and it'll check your data verifications if you don't have that set up. So one thing I did forget to mention to you is to where to go ahead and update that data in the payroll module, and I'll show you that after this. So it's going to go ahead and load up your company information. So there's that Banger demo company that I already had set up. And if it finds anything new, it'll tell you, hey, last time you logged in, I had some Oregon tax. We didn't have a value for the Oregon state tax ID. Now you do. Do you want me to change this? Hey, before you didn't have Missouri and Oklahoma. Now you do. Do you want me to change that? I'm just going to do the top two for now because I don't have these IDs set up. And I'll show you where to put those in payroll right after we get out of Atrix and where it reads it from. So I'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't want to select. Oh, I'll say click save. And then it pops up and says, hey, make sure your company name's right. Your Atrix company information is right. It's always going to do that for you. For those who've used Atrix, this should look familiar. And it does go through the filing in case you are filing anything electronically here. And this is where it pops up and says, okay, here's your state IDs that are required. You can add them on the fly here if you need to. If they're blank, you can do that. But I'll show you after we get out of here where you do that in Intacct so that it reads it automatically. So we'll just say, yep, that's good. We'll validate it. And now remember, it already knows the form it needs to run. So I'm just going to click next here. And it's going to generate that information. And based on our payroll data in the system. So it takes a few seconds to generate that. And then each report's going to have options if you need to file electronically. It's going to really follow the same process that you would be doing in Atrix in the past in your legacy systems. But you can see here there's a quarterly federal return, fills all the information in. Any fields that are missing, it's going to kind of alert you to it, and you'll be able to fill that out here as well if you need to. And I'm just going to go to my second page. And then you have third page. Okay. And then from there, you could records copy, you can save it. Red fields must be filled in before e-filing. Okay, so it kind of gives you a warning on that. And do I have any red fields? Save that as well. And then you just go through and go forward step by step. And that's basically it. You can click close, and then you can come back into here and run a different form. Or if I wanted to do like a state form, what do we say? We had Oregon. Let's see what Oregon has. And then you're going to have your state forms for Oregon, which I'm just going to take a guess. Annual. Okay, so then you can pick your forms, and you can generate that as well. This is also where, while you're in here, you can generate any certified reports. So if you notice the federal form, there's the DOL WH347 report. And then if you have a state form in here, let's see. I don't know if Oregon has one. Actually, I know Missouri. If there is a state certified, it'll be on here as well. Okay, so the forms change based on the states as well. So you can generate that here. And then you can e-file through there if you're required to e-file through the Atrix. So basically, through this process, you should be able to generate all of the reporting data that you need for your month end, along with quarterly and payroll reports. I would definitely recommend running these ahead of time and getting some of those favorites and menus set up to make it easier for you in the dashboards to process as you go through the system. And then the one thing I was going to show you was, where do I go to update those state tax IDs, federal tax IDs? If you go into payroll, under setup, they're all going to be in the entity setup. So if I go to set up entity, and once I'm in here, you'll be able to select your entity. And then you're going to have your federal information right here. And then you have what's called entity reporting. So any tax from, like, let's say you had, like, for example, I think it said I had Missouri. So I'd have to add my Missouri one down to tax. And it's typically alphabetical. And if I go to Missouri state income tax, then you could put your account number in for Missouri state income tax, which I'm not sure what the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just do the same here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 -8. You know, you can fill that out. And that's where it's going to get that reporting information from in the system. And also, basically, how it knows to grab the different tax information. If you go into your tax setups, and this is something you should check on, if you go into your tax setup here, for example, like if we look at the federal income tax, down at the bottom here, you have this report as option, federal income tax. And in a lot of cases, you have what's called tax type numbers. And this is linked to the Atrix numbers. So typically these will get filled out. I do believe they get filled out now. My demo data doesn't have them filled out. But if I come into here and say employee tax type number and I click read more. So if you click on the information, you click read more. I did that, right? It will open up to the spreadsheet and tell you exactly what the code needs to be for that tax. So if I needed to report on, you know, Georgia state withholding, I can find that line here. And this second column, this TT number, that's the Atrix number. That's the 109. So that is the number that you'd want to put right here. Okay, we'll do that for W-2s and year end and things like that. We'll make sure if you need some stuff filled out. And then there's an employee and employer one. So better example might be like FICA. You know, so you could see a report as Social Security, and then, you know, I could find the federal stuff in here as well. And you could filter. I would recommend filtering on these categories because it's a big list. But if I just page down, you have the locals, you have state. I believe there should be federal in here as well, unless we don't need them for federal. W-2s as well. Okay, so all of that is here on the spreadsheet. And you can fill all that out along with workers' comp. So, and we can assist in that as well if you have any questions on it. And that's where it gets that information from.